Welcome everyone! Today we're going to work further on the Viking house. In the last parts we modeled the house and imported the shield from another blend file. Today we're going to unwrap it and delete any unnecessary faces. UV unwrapping is something a lot of people don't like that much, as it does not really contribute to the final design. The good thing is we want to make use of tileable textures in the next part. That means that when we are unwrapping today we don't have to worry about the UV layout. So we can swap into the UV editing tab. Okay, so we have our house, and after we imported the shield we can select it, and then with tab we can see that we have all the UV layout from the other file. So that's great. So the shield we do not have to do anything. The only thing we can do here, which we already started, is checking if there are any faces that might not be visible. For example, like here in the back, there could be some of the faces that we might be actually able to delete. But maybe it's also like, for example, in a game, the people want an animation that the shield is falling off the house, like when the house is breaking down. So I think the shield we're just gonna leave for that. Okay, now we basically just have to go through each of the pieces and start adding some seams. So we can start, for example, with this one here. So we select it, we go into edit mode, and then we can see already it's kind of having some unwrapping here. If it doesn't show you, you can just click U and say unwrap. Now that looks weird because it's really stretched, because it does not have any seams. So what we can do, just to see how stretched this is, you can press N here to open the view bar and then select stretching. So this colors it, and with the colors we can see we want a dark blue here. So for example like this one up here. So the green is way too far stretched, so we have to solve this, okay? So, let's see. We can, for example, see, okay, there's no face at the bottom, that's already great. And now we have to kind of slice it up. So this side here, so that one line here, is always going to pointing back to the house. So no one is really going to see that. So we can press Ctrl E and say mark seam. Now we can select it all with A, U, and unwrap. Now that already looks better, but we can see that there's some stretching going on over here. What you can do if you're not sure like where this part is, you can select it here, and then you can see the selection up here. But you have to have the UV sync selection selected here, so this one has to be enabled. Okay, so we can adding some edges here that we want to open, so I'm gonna hold shift here and just selecting a few of them. Maybe like this might be enough. Ctrl E, mark seam, selecting all, and U unwrap. There's still a little bit of green, so maybe this one here. So you can do the same here, so you can select it, press Ctrl E, say mark seam, and then unwrap. Now that looks quite fine. There's nothing blue here anymore. Okay, so we've unwrapped our first model. And normally you would want to place it on the UV in a certain way so it kind of fits into the whole texture. We are not going to worry about that. So the rotation or how it's oriented or where it is on the texture, we don't care about that at all. Okay, so now we're going to go back into object mode. We are going to select the next one. So for example this robe, we can say all and U unwrap. And okay, this is like, here you can see on the complete corner, this is like looking really strange. So for example here there's round ones, we definitely want to split them up, and here we have a cylinder, so here we want to select one side again. So here we can select the bottom one, because it's probably not going to be that visible. Ctrl E, mark seam, unwrap that for a second. Okay, so this is already looking better. And then we can select two of those loops, Ctrl E, mark seam. And yeah, these ones we can kind of see that this is not great yet. So you're gonna take here the bottom ring and this bottom ring. So Shift, Alt, and left mouse. So I selected another ring, and the ring is always with Alt. Ctrl E, mark seam, select all, and then U to unwrap. And that's it. We unwrapped another one. So this is basically the procedure we're gonna follow now. Let's see. This one is quite easy because it's like two separate parts, so we don't need to add any edges. You can see this is like nicely blue, so that is perfectly fine without any seams. Let's take this one maybe. So you unwrap, and we can see that this is kind of like actually fine because we don't have faces in the back. So for example, what we can do is we can go into edit mode and say Shift H to hide all the other parts, and then we can kind of see the back part. Just now makes it really easy. And then we can go back into edit mode. So we can see here, this part is open, so we do not need to add any edges here. So the only thing is like up here. So these are kind of the end parts that are that need a little bit of unwrapping. So we can add maybe here on the bottom, Control E, mark seam, and then unwrap it again. I can see it's already getting better, but it needs a little bit more. So maybe here, let's take the front one. This one, Control E, mark seam, select all again, and unwrap. Okay, and that looks fine. So that is done already too. And then we can go back into edit mode. We can press Alt H to unhide everything on the ground. We don't want that, so let's hide that again. Okay, and now we kind of have to do that for all of them. So for example, for this one, you might consider just doing it once, because we know that this is exactly the same. We just duplicated it and moved it to the other side. So here we can kind of save us some work. What I'm gonna do here, because I cannot see like to the bottom, so I'm gonna go back into edit mode. I'm gonna do Shift H again to hide the rest of it, and then go back into edit mode to unwrap them. Okay, so if you see something like light blue like this can be a problem, but it's not really some real issue, so you don't have to necessarily force to everything to be in that really dark blue. I mean, it's better, but like if it's going to be too much seams just to get it like really nice, don't bother for that. Okay, so I added the seams here, so I can go back into object mode. I can press Alt H to unhide all the rest again, and then I can select this one here, the wood side 2, and I'm just gonna press X to delete it. And I'm gonna take this one here, say Shift D on the Y axis, or no, actually let's do it like that, and just do a rotate Z 180 degrees. That looks fine. Maybe we have to move it a little bit. So I'll grab an X a little over here. Yeah, that's great. And now we have already the seams also here, and we don't need to unwrap that. So that can save some work here. Okay, so now I'm just gonna do all of the rest. And if you're not sure which part you've already unwrapped, like you have your list here, so you can always just check. So we can, for example, select all from the top to the bottom, so the door, and press tab, enter edit mode, and here when we unwrap it, we can see that this is still a little bit strange, so we still have to do that one. And I'm just gonna hide all the others again and then unwrap this. For the door, I also decided to keep the back faces here, so those ones. Maybe that's not really necessary, but for example, if someone decides he wants to have an animation for opening the door, it's nice that these faces still exist, so we are going to leave them there. And just add some seams. It might actually be also a consideration to delete those bottom faces, because I'm pretty sure that no one is ever going to see that. Yeah, we can actually do that. So even if you have already laid out your UV, you can just still like edit them and change them, especially because we don't care about where the UV is located, so we can still change things here. and then for example just do all and then unwrap them again. This will change the positions, so that's why I'm saying, like, if you have already positioned them perfectly, don't do the unwrap thing, otherwise it will reposition it again. So, and this is actually saving us some faces, so this is great. Okay, so now let's see what else we have. If you have a shape like this where you're not sure exactly how or where do I put the seams, I always like to add them in those more inside edges. So let's go to edge select mode. So this one. So this is kind of on the inside. This one is on the outside, and this one I would prefer to keep without a seam. But this one is like really hidden on the inside, so we can use that on both sides. So this seems to be a good spot for a seam. That already looks better, and we need to somehow split it, so we could use this one. Probably it's a little hard to tell, so I'm just gonna hide all the rest again. And let's see what we have. Oh, so here we anyway have the opening, so that's great. So we can add one here and one here, and then it's gonna split the whole part nicely apart. Let's see where this one is. Well, we could do this one, but actually it's not really necessary. Okay, and for that one, we probably can just add this one. This one should be on the back. So Control E, mark seam. If you've selected a seam that you already previously marked, it does not matter. So here I selected the loop, and it also added those two. But after there were already seams, there it doesn't change the setting. And then this one is also done. So we still need to do these posts. Those look super messy. So we already deleted the bottom faces, so that's great. Here we don't need to do anything. And I'm just gonna hide all the rest, so Shift H to hide the inverse. And then we can easily work on that. So here again, this is going to be one of the edges that is not going to be really visible because it's pointing towards the house. So just going to select that for all of them. If I do it with alt, it's selecting a little bit too much, so that's why I'm just using Shift here. And Control E, mark seam. And that already looks better. The cracks that we have here, those can be sometimes tricky, but if you have a little bit stretch in them, it doesn't really matter because they're anyway tiny and a lot of times really dark. So we can kind of like play a little bit around that. So here with this one, here we have like this huge crack, and you can see it like here, it's kind of difficult. But how I would start is just like, let's start by just like with the other one. So you're just gonna add some, let's do one here, and then just start slowly, just, you know, adding to, unwrap it, and then see like, okay, is this already looking better? Well, this part here is quite green, so we can add maybe to here, mark seam, unwrap. And this is already starting to look actually quite fine. So the crack itself is not the big problem. So we can just maybe those two. And there we go. So here we have all of them. And as you can see, okay, there's some blue parts here, but those are not really the problem. So let's go back into edit mode and hide the house and see what we have left. We have this part here. Let's just see if we have deleted all the faces on the inside. Yes, we already have here a little opening. That's great. It's going to give us some room for the UV editing. So we're going to select those two here and then just keep on going. So with these little ones, I think here we can still delete some faces. Here I know that I left that face in there and on the bottom. So I'm not sure how much we can actually delete of that, because they're overlapping a little bit here. So it's kind of hard to delete them because they might actually look out of there. Select this one, yeah. Okay, so what we could do is jump into wireframe, surface set, and then 4 or solid. This is kind of between wireframe. I'm gonna press 3 to select this face, just to see if we can actually see that. So X and then face. And then we're gonna go into solid back. That looks actually fine, so we cannot really see it. That's great. So we could delete this one, maybe too. This one is actually slightly visible, but it's really small, so I don't think it's gonna be. Let's better leave that one. That's okay. Yeah, I think we're just gonna go with those two faces. Maybe hide the ones from this one on the bottom. And the other ones are kind of overlapping, so yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave it like that and then unwrap the rest of it. So for example, this one where we deleted the bottom part, this one, this is this one, okay. That looks fine actually. Okay, let's add some seams. Here I think it's also great to add some seams on the inside. So just gonna select all of them. And I could do the same for the back window, so I could just duplicate it and move it similar to those side ones. I'm just gonna edit it now because here we might be actually able to delete more faces. So we could still copy it and then just edit it with the existing seams. I'm just gonna do it now again because it's gonna save me some time in duplicating it and moving it to the right spot. So we're just gonna go in face selection mode. So those faces here, just gonna delete them all, and it's gonna save us a lot of time in moving them around, which is going to be great. And I think this face up there, this one definitely, this one. And then we just have this one left, so this is kind of, and then the same procedure as before. Okay, so one thing that I realized that sometimes when you start unwrapping, so if you don't have much experience with unwrapping and you just like randomly selecting some edges, that's actually fine. The only thing you have to watch out is that things are not overlapping. So sometimes, let's see if we would maybe add one here. Yes, so here we can see now this is kind of like the UV, so this one is going over that one. And that is quite bad, because if we start baking some textures on it, it will double bake it and it would look really strange. So this is something you really have to watch out for, that doesn't happen. So this is something we really want to avoid. So if you see something like that, you can just select the edge that was the reason for this. And then you can press Control E again, say clear seam. Now when we unwrap it, it's like this. So that's also like why there's cracks. You better kind of leave them like this and you don't do any unwrapping here, because a lot of times it's going to end up in some overlapping that you really don't want, because that's really going to screw up your whole, if you use baking or also any kind of texture painting, because you kind of double painting on two things at the same time. So that's something you really want to look out for. Okay, so that is actually all of it. I think I got everything, so Alt A, I'm just gonna deselect everything and I kind of go over everything and look if the UV is looking as I want it to be. Okay, so that's it. We have completely unwrapped it and now it's ready for using some tileable textures. So in the next part, we're going to look how to use tileable textures. And from there on, we're going to see like how you can use those tileable textures and then still add your own texture painting and stuff. I hope you enjoyed it, and leave a like or subscribe, even better. And then I will see you in the next one.